All right, well, hello everyone, and welcome to my channel Sir Calls a Lot. So the summer is in full swing in many places around the world, so I hope you're able to stay cool. You're cool, I'm cool, we're all super cool. So I am very excited to be able to finally get this video to you. It's been a few weeks since I've posted one. Really, the quick version here is after quite a bit of testing with the RX Coolers Mini Blue from For All Family, I finally built up the confidence to go live and take this on a trip with me and to actually carry live medicine. So this video is really just reporting out on all the notes and learnings that I collected with this experience, how I set up the cooler, and so on and so forth. So this trip is from the Bay Area to Sturgeon Bay in Wisconsin. I spent about a week there. This was a holiday, not a business trip, and so it involved some day trips, a lot of planes, some car rentals, a little bit of hoteling at the airport, and all sorts of different things. And so throughout this entire journey and experience, I had the For All Family RX Coolers Mini Blue running continuously. I took my medicine dose on the Wednesday, but I didn't let that stop me. I kept the unit going all the way through the trip and also on the return part of the journey as well, to collect as much data as possible to really pressure test whether this was a good cooler or not. So I have all the data and I have all the notes, and I hope you enjoy this video. Yes, of course, I have disclaimers. Feel free to pause this slide. You can also get a little bit of a background on me. Let's jump on in and let me give you more detail on the journey so you can kind of see what I did. So I live in the Bay Area. I taxied to the airport, South San Francisco airport. To get to Sturgeon Bay, I flew to St. Paul's, Minneapolis. I got a connection flight this time to Milwaukee Airport, and then from Milwaukee Airport I got a car rental and drove up to Sturgeon Bay. So that can sort of give you an idea of the journey time and travel experience. I spent about a week in Sturgeon Bay area. I did some day trips and other things, and I, of course, collected lots of data on all of this for the cooler, which I'm really excited to be able to share with you. This video is actually full of travel tips as well in relation to how one might approach using this cooler. So feel free to take notes. You're welcome to email me as well if you've got more specific questions, or put them in the comments, and hopefully I'll get to see those. Sometimes I don't get notices when people leave comments, so it's a little bit hit or miss. But anyway, we'll be happy to answer any questions if I get to see that you've left some for me. The return journey was a little bit different than the outbound journey. So I actually stayed at a hotel airport the night before the flight because it was a super early morning flight, like 6 a.m. and I didn't want to basically drive for 3 hours before the flight. And the return flight went via Salt Lake City, and then from Salt Lake City to San Francisco. By then I'd actually used my medicine, but I kept the cooler going and I left the medicine pen in the cooler so I could really just sort of simulate and collect as much data as possible. So I have all of that. So I've already posted a few videos giving you a bit of a tour of the product. You're welcome to check those videos out. I won't go through all of the details again here. I'll just focus on the live trip. Of course, Alibaba is selling the RX Coolers Mini Blue under very generic names on Amazon, I've seen it being called the MVO and the Secret Box and a bunch of different names. You know, there's a lot of reseller companies basically that are sticking their name on the side of the product. For this particular journey, the unit that I used was purchased from Amazon, and it was called the For All Family RX Coolers Mini Blue. So before I tell you about how I set up the cooler for the trip, just a little bit of materials and supply knowledge. Make note of these if they're of interest to you. The cooler holder that I have was very thin. It was very good sort of dimensionally because the RX cooler is quite long and thin. So as you know, I played around a little bit with some different kind of cooler holder designs, and I settled on one that fit well. But I didn't like the insulation, so I made a couple of modifications to this cooler, and I have a video to show you what I've done. So here are some of the materials and supplies that I used. I had some adhesive aluminum foil. I had this sort of insulation smart shield roll. I also had some EVA foam that I used to create a better padding for the base of the holder, and so on and so forth. So you'll see how this all comes together in a moment when I show the video. In terms of components and things like this, here's just a quick look at some of the sort of the components and the electronics that I used for this journey. So offline, I played around with a bunch of different battery designs and so on, and what I was trying to do was find a really nice battery that had a good sort of milliamp hours power, but also was kind of quite long and thin, and so really sort of fit well with the RX cooler that's a very sort of long and thin kind of design. And so after a bit of playing around with maybe 4 or 5 different designs of batteries, and then also making sure that the battery was sort of going to work the way I liked it, I settled on using the iWalk laptop power bank, which you can see here. There are 2 variants. There's a black and a sort of a chrome variant. I actually purchased both, and I'll in a later video you'll see them in action. In terms of wiring, I got this quite a long cable called an Aniopi fast charging 6-foot cable. You can see a picture of it there. Of course, for my temperature measurements, I really like the Tempify. It's a Bluetooth wireless sort of probe that you can place inside a cooler, and it sort of broadcasts to your phone where you can see live what the temperature is. And then finally, as I've mentioned a few times, when you're on a flight and you're doing a red eye, an overnight flight, some of these cooler systems, the temperature gauge actually is very bright, and it sort of lights up the footwell of your seat area. And so I've sort of got into a habit of trying to find a webcam cover that will conveniently sort of fit over the size of the temperature gauge dial, so you can basically hide the light by closing it. So the design that I found that actually fit quite well. It's a little bit bulky, so I'm hoping maybe I can find a little bit of a better one ultimately, but this was kind of a prototype travel trip. So I was kind of trying things out for improvement. But here in these videos, I use something called the JC Weenie webcam cover that you'll see in a moment in some videos. Kind of fit quite well to hide the illumination of the temperature gauge for being on a flight that's a night flight, sort of a red eye. So let me keep going. So this is really a video to kind of show you how all this comes together and is set up. So here's the cooler bag that I selected, and then as I mentioned, it's on the thin side, and then I was also worried about the base of the cooler for sort of shock absorption purposes. I wanted to really just spend a moment to sort of boost this up. So here's the EVA foam. I cut out a circular thick disc that has the circumference of the bag, and I basically just fed this to the base. And the idea here is that you've got a nice sort of padding at the base of the bag to give you a little bit of shock protection, and also this foam provides insulation too. So it's got kind of a dual purpose. You can kind of see just how thin this cooler bag material is. I tried hard to find a better cooler bag, but this was really the one that had the right geometries for the cooler and the batteries and stuff. All right, so here you can see what I did with the roll, the insulation roll, and then also I used that aluminium tape to kind of stick this all together. So basically I just made myself a little cylinder, an insulated cylinder that really comfortably feeds into this cooler, and that's basically how I set this up, just to make it a little bit better for the journey. You can already see to the side I've attached one of my Tempify probes. This is just to measure the local ambient temperature, and this will follow the unit throughout. And there you see the iWalker batteries, and as I said, I got one of each color. I don't know why, they just kind of look cool, and so I got one of each. So now you can see a little bit about how this battery works. There's kind of a cable tether that you can detach from the main case, and there you can also see that cabling that I mentioned. And so I'm going to in a moment just show you how this works. So that cabling, you will actually attach it to the bottom or the base of the battery. And so there's basically a couple of ports at the base of that battery which work perfect for this setup. So here you can see me positioning the battery and plugging in that cable. And so this wire is going to serve as a charging cable. So whenever I am at an airport, I'm on the plane or whatever, and I find a plug, that cable is going to be the charger cable. So it's quite long. I've kind of wrapped it up and bundled it together. The pocket here has quite a bit of room anyway, and so when this all gets sort of tidied together and I close this pocket and zip it up, it'll all be very snug. And then that cable will basically just come out of the side of the pocket and can be plugged into a reciprocal at, say, the airport or whatever. Now here you see I'm pointing out a little hole that I've made inside the pocket. So this little hole, I mean, it looks a little bit crude at the moment, but later on you can sort of tidy that up with a sort of a button or something. But basically what I'm doing is I made a little hole that allows me to poke that other cable through into the bag. And you'll see why I did this in a minute. So basically this is the cable that's going to power the cooler. And so I fed that through, and that's now in a nice position. And then basically you can zip this pocket closed now completely, except for the little piece of cable that will come out of the side, which will be for the charging. So there you can see how that cable's kind of poking out at the side. I mean, when you're actually, on your journey, you would tuck that back into the pocket. So this is just how it would look when you have the cable poking out and you want to sort of charge the unit. And so now I'm going to sort of switch my focus towards showing you how I've set up the RX cooler. So here's the RX cooler, and so in this video this is just a setup demonstration, so everything's at room temperature here, nothing is being refrigerated, and the medicine pen here has been used, so it's not been cooled down. Because I'm only carrying one pen on this trip, I actually placed the medicine cooler pen in the inverted position, so the drug product is closer to the cooling engine. As you know, there's a slight gradient, a temperature gradient with these products, where the closer you are to the cooling engine, the cooler it is, and the further away you are, so at the very base, the warmer it is. But the temperature is pretty good throughout. It's just, if you're a perfectionist about your temperatures and you're a bit of a connoisseur, why not go for broke? So now you can see how this cable here comes into play, and its position is perfect because you can just plug it into the USB reciprocal there to start the cooler. And then once you're in position, you can do a little bit more tidying of the wiring. So the goal here is really just to not have any wiring kind of stick out of the carrier case, while you're moving around. Basically, I was always very worried that something might catch it and then accidentally turn it off, which would be a problem. So I always putting a lot of energy into really making sure the cable that runs from the battery to the cooler is very well protected. And so here you can see it is. Also, you can now see that I added that little webcam lens cap to the top. You can kind of see, that's obviously not part of the original unit. I've added that, but you can kind of see how it fits really well over the temperature gauge, and also giving you a little feel of, you can kind of see now with all of the additions and that EVA foam base, the unit's much more stable and sturdy, and so it's kind of harder to knock it around and stuff. So that's basically the quick tour of how I approached setting this cooler system up for my live trip. This is how I traveled. I actually carried both batteries. One was my live battery, and the other one was basically a backup battery. And interestingly enough, there's actually enough room in that pocket there to hold both of those batteries, because they're very, very thin. But I decided not to do that because I was debating whether that would somehow trigger a secondary TSA inspection, because they were wondering why there's such a large battery next to a cooler. But anyway, I don't know. I was just playing around silly ideas in my head. All right, let's keep going. So, no, you're not seeing double here. So funnily enough, because I really liked this system, I decided to buy a second unit, but instead of buying the unit from the For All Family RX coolers, which you can kind of see, the label branded on the side, I bought a unit on Amazon that was being sold by a reseller called MV2O or MVO, depending on how you call it. And on the side of their box, they have, actually it says secret box on the side of their box. So they, I don't think they even bothered changing the generic manufacturer's name that's on Alibaba. They just basically ordered a bunch of units. Now, one interesting thing that I realized was the For All Family RX cooler displays the temperature in Fahrenheit, while the secret box MVO medicine cooler displays the temperature in centigrade. So I thought that was quite funny. But in any case, the For All Family Voyager costs like not Voyager, RX cooler costs like $140 on Amazon, while the MVO secret box cooler costs $99. It always seems to have a discount, but the price you pay is seems to be that the temperature gauge is in centigrade versus Fahrenheit, but $40 is quite cool. Anyway, I thought you might find that interesting just to sort of see that. I definitely went all in with testing this and playing around with it. So now for the journey, I'll just flash through a couple of photos and videos so that you can really see that I genuinely did this. So here I am at South San Francisco Airport. I just got through TSA security, no issues here. The unit went through the screening machine and came out the other side without triggering any alarms. And so that's the For All Family RX Coolers Mini Blue with the iWalk battery. This trip I was using Delta Airlines, and so the club lounge here is the Delta Club Lounge at SFO. So a couple of photos of that, just hanging out. This was a night flight, so the flight was actually at like 1 a.m. or something, and it was like a 3-4 hour flight. So you go to the airport, get on the plane, and you're supposed to sleep overnight and then arrive at St. Paul's, Minneapolis very early in the morning. So I'll keep on going here. So here's a quick look at me on the flight. So this is the SFO to St. Paul's, Minneapolis. And nothing very complicated here. The Delta seats have a nice pocket. You can put a lot of stuff in there. For most of the journey, I just parked the cooler in the pocket and had it plugged into the seat charger. For takeoff and landing, I actually did put the unit under the seat on one of the occasions, because I was kind of worried the flight attendant might not like that bulky item. But interestingly enough, later on I realized they didn't seem to be bothered as long as it was kind of sitting in the pocket. And then of course here you can also see how that lens cap's going to be handy, because this is a night flight. I'm going to close that lens cap to really kind of obscure the light that comes from that temperature gauge that's actually quite bright. Alright, so of course when you arrive at St. Paul's, Minneapolis, there's only one thing to do. Go to the club lounge and have a nice breakfast. So this is what I did. And of course the cooler came along and was plugged into the charger next to the seat. So then the journey continues, going from St. Paul's, Minneapolis to Milwaukee, pretty much the same. The seats were a little bit older looking, but Delta's seats seem to be quite similar from plane to plane. So just did the same thing again, parked the cooler in the pocket. Alright, so now I've arrived at Milwaukee Airport, got to the car rental place. This time I was using Hertz again, and they seem to have some really cool Jeeps, and so I got myself another Jeep. This time it was a Jeep Wrangler, which was quite a cool looking car. In terms of the medicine cooler, I just parked it on the back seat. I strapped a seatbelt around it, and the center console has a variety of USB ports, and so now you can see how that 6-foot cable comes in handy, because I popped it out and plugged it in, and it was perfect. And so here's kind of a bit of a closer peek at that Jeep. I don't know if you like Jeeps or not, but I thought this car was quite cool. And so here's kind of a picture of that. You can kind of see the cooler there sitting on top of the engine bay. And so I hope you enjoyed just listening to the water there a little bit. So couldn't help it, did a little photo shoot of the cooler at the lake. So this is obviously the big Lake Michigan. And so hopefully you enjoyed those sounds there. I'll keep on going. During this trip I did a couple of day trips. So one of them was we went to Fish Creek, which was nearby. We parked the car, we went on a boat, a kind of a tour guide boat for a few hours, and I thought to myself, hey, what a great opportunity to test how the cooler would do in blistering July heat. It was actually Fish Creek was touching on 90 degrees Fahrenheit on this particular day. And actually, by the time I did this particular day trip, I'd already taken my medicine, and so now I was in extreme testing mode. And so I thought to myself, hey, I'm going to leave this cooler in the back of the car. The sun's going to come by. It will get hit directly with the sunlight. The car temperature is probably going to go to about 110, 120. And let's see what happens. And I got all the data on that to show you, so I think you'll find that interesting. Of course, we also went to the Peninsula State Park, and here are some videos just to prove to you that the cooler really did go there. And it was a very beautiful day. And then so finally, on the last day, so this was Saturday night, the following Saturday night, we stayed at an airport hotel, the 4 Points by Sheraton at the Milwaukee airport. It was very dark when we arrived, so that video there showing the car and the cooler in the back and the sign of the hotel is kind of dark, but also you can kind of see what the room looks like. And you know, all the rooms in the hotels have plugs that you can plug the unit in, so that's what I did for this. And then so finally, just a couple of photos of the return journey. Really, some, you know, mostly uneventful, but one interesting thing here was when I went through the TSA security at Milwaukee Airport, the RX Coolers Mini did trigger a secondary screening inspection. There was 2 inspectors that were very intrigued by the cooler. The first one as I was going through the screening, and then I watched the inspector talk to the second inspector on the other side, and they selected my tray with the RX cooler for sort of a secondary inspection, and they were asking questions. They were like, oh, we've never seen this, what is this? And so I said, oh, this is a medicine cooler. It doesn't have any large fluid, it's not a water bottle, it has a battery and a power unit. And so they wanted to just do a chemical swab. What they asked for, they didn't ask me to open up the cooler, they just asked me to take the cooler out of the carrier container, which I did. And then interestingly enough, when I took the cooler out of the carrier container, it did momentarily unplug the device, but this was, you know, less than a minute, maybe like 30 seconds, so it really didn't have any material effect on the actual core cooling temperature. So they took a little swab of the container surface. The inspector allowed me to reassemble everything because I let him know this is an active medicine cooling system and I need to plug it back in, and he was fine with that. And then I waited for the chemical test to be complete, and once they finished that, which was quite quick, you know, those things just take a few seconds, he said, oh yeah, everything is fine, I hope, you know, and then he apologized a little bit, you know, apologize, I hope you don't mind, we hadn't seen this before, we just wanted to make sure it was safe, and then they let me go. So I just, you know, I thought that would be an important thing to mention here. I already mentioned a few times that in the more recent months, as airports have been upgrading their TSA screening technologies, I've been noticing that the coolers with the batteries have been about 30 to 40% of the time have been selected for secondary screening. Probably some combination of it. This looks like a strange device with a battery, and they want to make sure that it's okay. So just a heads up on that. I would say, you know, be prepared for secondary screening, but don't panic. Once they realize it's not a bomb, it's usually good to go. So anyway, here you can see me on my way back. It's Delta again, just the usual stuff. And then of course here you can see some pictures of me at the baggage claim, and then just waiting for a taxi as I left SFO. So now for the money slide, of course, as always, here's the temperature data for the trip. So this graph actually is a continuous graph that runs from the Friday when I started the trip all the way to the following Sunday when I get home from the trip. So this is a continuous data plot. There's no interruptions. It is raw, it's live, it's what happens. The black plot is the core temperature of the cooler, and the purple plot is the ambient temperature of the Tempify that's sitting immediately outside of the cooler. So you can get basically an almost head-to-head view of the ambient temperature versus the cooler temperature throughout the trip. You will see towards the middle of this graph a big peak of temperature. Don't panic yet. I will explain what this is in the next slide. This was an extreme temperature test, and so this was done very deliberately to really pressure test how far this cooler could go. But to cut a long story short, the story here of this graph is typical to all of my graphs. At the beginning of the trip, the cooler is packed. The travel starts a little bit into the graph, and then, as you can see, really throughout the totality of this trip, the cooler maintains a temperature below 46 Fahrenheit, except on some special occasions. So the first one was obviously when I was packing the cooler, so that's obvious. The second peak here is actually when I unpack the cooler to take my medicine dose. So this one here is obvious as well. And then in a minute, I will explain to you what this extreme temperature peak is. This was special, and you will see the data in more detail on the next slide about this. So let me skip that for a moment. Then you can see, throughout the whole week, the cooler's fine. I drive back to the airport, I check into the hotel, I travel on the plane, and then I get back to my house. And then when I get back to my house, I plug the cooler in, I charge the battery to 100%, and then I unpower it, and then I let the battery run until the battery basically runs out of charge, because I wanted to see just after all of that how good the iWalk battery was in terms of charge. Incredibly, that little battery test at the end, the iWalk battery lasted 19 hours 45 minutes on battery, which is super cool. So overall, this was a really nice data set, very impressive. And let me now tell you about this little peak in the middle so you can understand what that is. So this is zooming into this. So what I did on Wednesday afternoon after I'd taken my medicine was I couldn't help myself. There was an opportunity to do some extreme temperature testing. So what that was it was a really hot day. It was hovering in the 90-degree Fahrenheit range. And basically we went out for the day to go on a boat trip, and so I figured, wow, I'm just going to park the car in the midday sun, not in the shade, right in the middle of the sun, and I'm going to leave this unit on the back seat, but positioned so that the sun's going to go right, it's going to move out of the shade into the sun while it's in the car and basically completely cook, which was kind of the goal. So I was guessing that the car would probably heat up to about 110, and the cooling unit, while in the shade, would probably be about the same. But when it moved into the sun, I was thinking it would probably go maybe into the 115 Fahrenheit range. Actually, incredibly, the Tempify at its peak recorded a temperature of 120 Fahrenheit, and so that's basically the unit sitting in a car in the middle of the day, and right in the sun and cooking out. And I was really surprised to see that it actually held up really well. in spite of being cooked at 120 Fahrenheit, the internal temperature of the cooler basically didn't go above 65 Fahrenheit, which is really, really impressive. Now, of course, if you want to maintain very specifically 36 to 46 Fahrenheit as your temperature, you're not going to want to leave this unit cooking in the car all day. But if you're on a day trip and you're transporting perhaps insulin, and you're planning to use the insulin within 2 weeks, and your goal is to keep the insulin protected from 86 Fahrenheit, which is the critical temperature, wow, you're in business with this unit. It will do the job. You could basically take this into the desert and it will protect your insulin. So yeah, so I thought you might find that kind of interesting as an extra bonus. So I am reaching the end now of my little story and my little journey. And so I was so impressed with this cooler. And so now I've actually gone on a live trip with live medicine, and it's supported my needs. The one thing to note, so it obviously when the temperature's below 86 Fahrenheit, it does a great job of staying at 36 to 46 Fahrenheit. Be careful with this unit when the temperatures get higher. It won't hold 46 Fahrenheit when you're getting up into that 95 plus zone. But of course, the claim was that it could stay below 79 at 104 Fahrenheit. And based on this test today, I had the unit at 120 Fahrenheit, and it stayed at 65, which is a resounding pass. So the last thing to mention was I did that little iWalk battery test at the end, and it lasted for 19 hours with a single battery charge, so that was super cool too. And then just in terms of what are some of the thoughts that I'm left with, the big one is I still didn't feel like the carrier case, the travel carrier was optimal. It got the job done. It was a little bit of a jury-rigged kind of thing to make sure that there was it was kind of insulated and gave enough protection. But I think I'm going to play around with that a little bit more to try and make it better. And then just a cautionary note: if you are aiming to maintain your product at 36 to 46 Fahrenheit, don't leave this unit cooking in a car in a desert in the middle of the day, because it will not protect your product. But that's very, very extreme. So in conclusion though, I'm definitely sold on the For All Family RX Coolers Mini Blue. It's very capable. It can sustain a controlled temperature of 36 to 46 for a wide range of travel conditions, and I am definitely putting this on my list of products that I'm going to be using. The only snag for me is it's small, so it can only carry 1 or 2 pens, which lasts 1 or 2 weeks. If I am carrying 2 pens, there's not enough room for a temperature probe inside the unit, which I really, really like having. And so, based on my perfectionism, I'm really only able to use this for a 1-week trip, because I can only carry 1 pen and also include a temperature probe inside the unit. But yeah, if you're going on a 1-week holiday, this is a good one to take with you. Little bonus slide. As you know, I was playing around with different setups, so here's just a quick view of what it could look like if you go with a paler blue bag versus a darker blue bag. I don't know, kind of a little bit of a cooler fashion show. So that's a wrap from me. I hope this video was informative and instructive, and of course I'm just getting started with my channel and this project. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please email me or add a comment if you got questions, and I will talk to you again. Stay cool, my friends.